In this tutorial, I'm going to be talking about core exercise for beginners, and we're going to be talking about the importance of a neutral spine. Now, this is one of the most fundamental, if not the most fundamental, position of the body to be strong and to also minimize risk of injury. So it works on two fronts. It's not just developing and challenging the muscles, it's also keeping the spine safe or in a as safe a position as you can keep it. Now, there are some people out there that talk about or that sort of, let's just say, deny the neutral spine and the position, but I'll address that in the first part of the tutorial. Then what I'm going to do is go through a couple of paragraphs of text which is written for Olympic lifting athletes, but what's written in it highlights the importance of it for an advanced athlete. And then if we feed that all the way down to beginners and just general gym goers, it's a necessary posture. So if it's necessary for an Olympic athlete, I'm just saying it's necessary for a beginner and an everyday gym goer. So for the people that deny the neutral spine, if I could find a better way to describe it, I would. But for people who don't sort of believe in the neutral spine coaching point or position itself, when we look at the definition of it, it's known as elastic equilibrium. Now, the condition of an elastic body in which each volume element of the body is in equilibrium under the combined effect of elastic stresses and externally applied forces. Now, that sounds like a lot of waffle, but basically what is trying to be said there is the neutral spine, so let's just say the neutral lumbar spine, is the natural inward curve of the spine. Now, in that position, that is where it distributes the stresses put on the spine evenly across all of the passive tissues. What I've just described there about elastic equilibrium is a slightly more technical way of describing that. So we're trying to put our spine in a position where all the forces from exercises that we're doing are distributed evenly rather than unevenly. If we go into a rounded spine, then they get distributed unevenly on certain tissues of the spine. Now, that's something that we don't want because it's going to increase our risk of injury. We might feel like we're getting a better performance, but that's at the expense of the health of the spine. So we want to be able to keep that neutral posture because, again, as I mentioned, it works on two fronts. It challenges the muscles, makes your core stronger, but it also minimizes the risk of injury. The second point is the couple of paragraphs written by or for the Olympic lifting athletes. Now, I'm going to read the whole thing all the way through, then I'm going to go back through and sort of deconstruct it and talk about it. So I'm not going to explain anything from the start, but a straight or slightly arched back during the snatch and the clean is needed to create and preserve a rigid connection between the support and the barbell. Should the back round during the lift from the floor, some of the force produced by the legs will be dissipated by the sagging of the trunk. Therefore, some of the lifting force will not be effectively communicated to the barbell. However, no vertical force per se is generated by a tight back. The tight back serves as a rigid connection between the barbell and the support. As a point of fact, the force or the forces which actually lift the barbell must be generated against the support. It is the manner in which this force is applied which determines the technical proficiency. So, what does all of that mean? So he's talking about the snatch and the clean. So if you've ever watched the Olympics and you see the guys that stand up on the stage and lift the barbell from the floor and either flick it over their head or onto their shoulders and then over their head, those exercises are called the snatch and the clean. So those are the two exercises that he's talking about. Now, he says the straight or slightly arched back preserve a rigid connection between the support and the barbell. Now, the support is your body and the barbell is obviously the barbell with the weight on it. So that neutral spine gives a rigid connection between you and the barbell. Should the back round during the lift from the floor, some of the force produced from the legs will be dissipated by the sagging of the trunk. So let's just use as an example, you generate 100 units of force from your legs whilst you're lifting a weight from the floor. If your back rounds during that lift, you're going to lose some of those units. So it might go down to 95 or 90 or even 50, depending on how big the rounding of the back is. But basically what it's saying is you're going to lose power or force if your back rounds. So if you want a strong body, you need to be in that neutral spine position. No vertical force per se is generated by a tight back. That's him just basically saying it's not contributing to the power that's generated. It's giving you that rigid connection. So the tight back serves as a rigid connection. So it's not, as I mentioned, generating more power. It's just supporting that connection between you and the bar, or you and the weight, whatever it might be. So as a point of fact, the forces which actually lift the barbell must be generated against a support. So that's sort of just continuing on what's been said already. It's that position of the spine is giving your body the support that it needs to be able to lift it most efficiently and effectively. It is the manner in which these forces is applied which determines the technical proficiency. So the quality of the exercise is determined by the quality in the way that you perform the exercise. That's important. Now, as I've mentioned, the neutral spine is the most fundamental position to be in. If you look at any exercise, you want to be in that neutral posture. So when we are going into exercise, that is one of the determinants that if you're in a neutral posture, in some way you're performing it correctly. There are obviously other factors to it, but if your body leaves neutral or that straight spine, then you're performing it incorrectly. It could be slightly too heavy, it could be slightly too much range of movement. So we've then got to work that out. So if you're a beginner going into the gym, this is one thing that you need to be focusing on, is maintaining that neutral posture. So the most effective ways to do it is using, or certainly as a beginner anyway, is using the plank, using the side plank as core exercises. If you start using sit-ups, crunches, side bends, twists, you are taking your spine out of that posture. So then if you go into other lifts like dumbbell presses or barbell rows or chest or like machine rows or leg presses or whatever it is, deadlifts from the floor, then if you round your spine, you're going to be putting extra pressure on the spine and stress on the spine and compression on the spine, and also you're going to be diminishing the ability to lift that weight. So what we want to be able to do is maintain that neutral spine to be able to give us the best opportunity to improve fitness and also minimize risk of injury. And that, as a beginner, is one of the most effective things you can do at the start, because if you can get this right at the start, as you get into exercise more and more and more, it's going to benefit you the further up the exercise pyramid that you go. So from a beginner to an intermediate to an advanced, all the way through that, they need to maintain that neutral spine. And the snatch and the clean are, let's just say, probably the most technically proficient exercises that we can find, and they're talking about maintaining a neutral spine within that. So if it's got to be done in the most technical of exercises, it's got to be done in the most simple of exercises as well, because it's those simple exercises where you learn it, reinforce it, so you can then translate it in the more technical and advanced exercises. So hopefully this has given you a better idea of some of the reasons why you use a neutral spine, and hopefully it gives you a better explanation also of why you're doing it, but also it helps you sort of remove those neutral spine, I don't like using the word, but deniers. It helps you understand that they're not necessarily giving you the best information. We want to be able to keep a neutral spine, and as I've just outlined, those are some of the reasons why it's important to maintain it. So many thanks for watching. My name is Chris from Christopher Holt Training. I will speak to you in the next tutorial.